manifesto talked about radical change within the NHS, for instance. As part of the way forward, would you like to see the Scottish Government adopt the sort of changes that Wes Streeting wants to implement for the NHS in England?
Yes, and I've had discussions with Wes Streeting about the challenges we face, both in the NHS in England, but also specifically the NHS in Scotland. Neil Gray has said that he wants to work together with Wes Streeting. I welcome that. We have looked at increasing the number of appointments to tackle and bring down the excessive waiting list. And of course, in Scotland, that's 840,000 people on a waiting list. I would urge any Scottish Government minister to use the money for health within the NHS in Scotland and to follow our lead in generating 160,000 more appointments every year.
And what about more private involvement in the NHS? Because it seems that Alan Milburn, the former Health Secretary in the Brown Blair years, is coming back to advise Wes Streeting. It's widely seen that he is one of the architects of more private involvement in the NHS. So is that something you would welcome in Scotland?
Alan Milburn was a great health secretary in his time, but can I say to you, in Scotland, the Scottish Government already use the private sector. It is right where
I'm asking you about more.
Capacity.
Whether if more comes in England, should the Scottish Government follow that lead?
If you let me finish, right? The Scottish Government already use the private sector in Scotland, but the private sector in Scotland is small. It is marginal to dealing with some of the challenges in our NHS. There's simply not enough capacity. We would use the capacity that's there, but so don't get me wrong, but what I'm saying very clearly is the solution in Scotland lies within reform in the NHS.
But that reform in England, which you say the Scottish Government should follow their lead on, may well involve more private involvement.
Look, the Scottish Government already use the private sector.
No, I understand that. Well, yes, but it's not just about using the private sector in terms of private beds to bring down waiting lists. There are other ways the private sector can be involved and already are involved in the health service in England. Are you saying no to that happening in Scotland?
No, I mean, the private sector is already involved in the health service in Scotland, but it simply does not have the capacity that exists in England. So there needs to be a different solution in Scotland that suits our circumstances. But it's this notion that, you know, the private sector are involved in scans, in interpreting scans. They're involved in building the MRI machines that we use extensively in the NHS. The issue for me is about treatment for people. It is the patient that needs to be at the centre of this. And as you know, with our plans, we want to involve not just the patient, but the clinicians who actually know how the NHS should be run.
It now also seems that in England and Wales, there'll be a different approach to prisons, given the